So this is the third poem by Richard Blanco. The title of the poem is Taking My Cousin's Photo at the Statue of Liberty. Um, I was thinking about repetition for this poem, repetition, because notice how some lines repeat to give the poem some kind of rhythm. May she never miss, may she never remember, may she be as American as I wanted. Um, Also, may this be her country more, right? So the repetition creates a pattern that keeps recurring and allowing us to flow along with the language of the poem. But what is the poem saying to us? Again, as I commented on the previous, at least on the second poem, the the poet really wants us to have access to the language he's using. He's trying to be very forthcoming and at the same time preserve the pleasure of poetry. So this is not necessarily a complicated poem. And, and, as, and as you can see, it's really a poem that comes out of the experience of being an immigrant and a Cuban American immigrant. In this case, one question I was asking myself that might encapsulate the whole meaning of the poem is, how do we receive the person who is coming into the country? And also, who is to receive that person or welcome, right, that person into the country? The poem actually is a very simple, describes a very simple situation, but it's a situation that addresses at the core the coming into the country of the immigrant. Because here we have, right, a person taking a picture of the cousin, right, and the background is the Statue of Liberty. And we know that the Statue of Liberty embodies precisely that welcoming into the country to the stranger, to the newcomer. And so the Statue of Liberty here is not just any icon, right? As you know, as you well know. And so when you take the picture, right, you're in the process of placing the person along with the background, and then your mind, there are many things that are going through your mind, and for me that's the poem, the many things that go through the mind of the person taking this picture. And then finally, right, before you take the picture, you ask the person to smile, and then you take the picture, which is never taken actually, right? In this poem, we get to the smile, and then the photo will be taken. This is so. So how do we welcome the person into the country, right? In this specific case, the poet is saying that there's something she needs. Well, she doesn't need to necessarily miss what she left behind. And what is it that she left behind? The beauty of the island, the sugarcane fields, right? And turquoise sea around the island. But that's one side of the picture, right? Because the second, pun not intended. The second part of the life in Cuba is selling glossy postcards of the revolution and El Che to sweaty Germans. Also broken toilet, right? peeling stuck of her room, and so on and so forth. So it's the many things that Cubans on the island have to do to survive. It's um, it's the selling of a revolution that no longer exists, but it's the revolution is in the postcard. Now, this revolution took place in 1959, right? And El Che was a guerrilla fighter from Argentina who traveled all the way through South America, Latin America, until he was invited by Fidel Castro to join the revolution and socialism on the island, right? So that explains that reference. But that's no longer, that's the past. And people are struggling to survive on the island. And so one reference that may be strange for you, it's when the poet says, in a government partitioned mansion dissolving like a sandcastle back into the Bay of Cienfuegos. Because what took place was that the government, the socialist communist government, simply has given or gave mansions that belong to people with lots of money to common people, people who had no housing, but since the government has not had any money to invest in refurbishing those houses, they are dilapidated, many of them. But there is a kind of weird contrast between the beauty of these locations and these mansions, big houses, colorful houses, and the reality of poverty at the same time. So you are giving as a citizen of Cuba, these houses, even in the, I'm thinking of the capital city, Havana, right? But you live in really poor conditions because you don't have the money to afford, for improvements. So that's what the poem is saying right there for me. And then also the reality of Cubans in Miami or in the States is described in here, because notice the line, may she never have to count the dollars we would send for her wedding dress. We would send for her wedding dress, and so on and so forth. So is the remittances, right? The money that goes to Cuba continuously from Cubans living in Miami or elsewhere, right? So they are attached to the reality. Those living here in the States are attached to the realities of their families living in Cuba, and vice versa. Okay, as you find out if you visit Cuba, as I did, along with other colleagues from the college a couple of semesters ago. And then we have the wishing for Americanness, okay, becoming American. May she be as American as I wanted to be once. But then what does it mean, right? To be Americanized, or to become American in her case. Well, many things according to the poem, and I would like to highlight mainly that the person should, his aunt should adopt an appreciation of those who came before here in the States. So when he says rosy-cheeked men in breeches and white wigs, he's referring actually to the paintings of the founding fathers, right? And then liberty and justice for all, and with the people, right? The Constitution, the legal system in the States, and some major symbols of the American culture and realities, such as God bless America, right? And what is funny also is that he doesn't only ascribe meaning to those major symbols, right? But also to the commercial life that we have here in the States. For example, infomercials, right? Um, Designer perfumes. And he goes even to an extreme, I would say, to kind of make fun of life here in the States when he says, drive a Humvee. So that's hyperbolic, right? Is the wish for just, may I say, going crazy about showing off by driving these expensive cars that mm, will, use a lot of gas and so on and so forth. So he says that's part of America as well. Okay, that's part of our reality. So if that is your goal in America, I wish for you to also be to also get to do that, or to feel empowered to 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 do that, to go to an extreme. Um, and then notice how he also makes fun of the reality of the Statue of Liberty when he says, uh, when she lifts her Diet Coke like a torch into the June sky. But this is not necessarily sarcasm for me. Okay, this is a light take on becoming part of this reality of America as well. Um, and then and then we have an answer, I guess, for the question as to who welcomes the newcomer, right? The one that welcomes the newcomer maybe knows a lot or wishes to know a lot about the person who is being welcomed. And that means, in this case, I know about your reality in Cuba, right? What took place in there. I know what you can miss about it, but I also welcome you into this new territory and into this new culture. And there are a lots of things that you will observe here, and I wish for you to enjoy them and to be part of them and to somehow take it light, right? As as much as you respect what is truly to be respected here, also take some of them and have some take some of them and have fun with them, um, and know that many of us will be with you as you become part of this country. Okay, um, so the new generation, right, of Cuban Americans is hosting you, is treasuring you, and welcome you now, not as Cuban, as a Cuban person, but as a Cuban American person in the United States. A new identity for you.